case is closed, but some never rest. When silence screams, we listen. This is Dead and Wrong.
Welcome back to Dead and Wrong Podcast, everybody. I'm Liz,
I'm Sam.
and we are thrilled to see you guys have returned to us. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Seriously, this is actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. We had to record both episodes a second time a few days after the original recording because I did not test any of our recording equipment out. Basically, when we originally recorded, our voices were together, and so sometimes you would hear Sam, sometimes you would hear me, and it just sounded really weird. Well, then one of my friends basically explained that I could separate our voices. I didn't know how to do that, and then I had to teach myself to do that. And so now we are re-recording to make it sound a lot better. So I'm really glad all those late nights of me doing editing were for nothing.
But I'm glad that you're learning how to do this because I'm not doing any of it.
Oh no,
I just sit here and listen.
my one friend was like, you can just let your other partner record on her end and then record on your end and then combine them. I'm like, Sam would somehow delete the whole entire thing. No.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
I'm
not good with computers.
My co-host is not the most computer savvy person in the world. Her kids can probably do better than her.
Yes. That's a hard statement.
Yes. So seeing as we recorded both episodes 1 and 2 on the same day, there is not really going to be much we have to say before this case starts, so we are just going to jump right in.
And as a reminder, we will have socials at the end, so if there's anything you want to send us, please do, and please put your consent in the email for us if you want it read on the podcast.
Yes. And then obviously, if you want us to post anything, especially on Instagram, like if you send us photos of your pet and we do a shout out, or maybe you send us like newspaper clippings or article clippings, anything like that, those we also need consent. So it'd basically be like please read this on the podcast, or please post these things, and as long as we get something along those lines, we will 100% post them and we will 100% do a shout out to you. So again, we really want to thank you guys for joining us on this new journey, and I hope you guys enjoy Dead and Wrong, Episode 2, The Harris Family Murders of 1989. Before we start this, there is going to be some rough parts to this case. It involves a juvenile and a dog and how they passed away. I will make sure to state trigger warning before it starts so you can just skip over the details. I will probably give you a rough estimate of like, hey, skip ahead 5 seconds, skip ahead 10 seconds, just so you're not missing too much. So, let's begin. It is 7 a.m. on December 24th in the year 1989. A woman steps outside and hears a smoke alarm coming from her neighbor's house. Worried about the family, the woman calls the police. 30 minutes later, they arrive at 1886 Ellis Hollow Road, the home of the Harris family. A lone officer approaches the front door, actively hearing the smoke alarm. He knocks on the front door a few times and waits. After knocking a few more times and getting no response, he tries the doorknob. It's unlocked. He opens the door, steps inside, and immediately smells the faint scent of smoke. It's kind of like the smell you get when you have a minor kitchen mishap. So I'm sure some of you are thinking like, whoa, is he just allowed to walk into this house? So yes, if the circumstances are considered emergent or important, the possibility of an emergency going on, law enforcement officers are allowed to go into a house. This house has smoke alarms going off, no one was answering, the door is unlocked. There could potentially be two major possibilities. A fire has started and no one's home. So obviously he's going to want to try to put the fire out so their house doesn't burn down. Or maybe someone had got smoke inhalation and they're unconscious on the floor and they need help. So because of these potential circumstances going on, he was more than allowed to walk in and start a quote-unquote safety search to make sure that no one needed help. So this officer walks in, he can smell the smoke, But that thought of maybe it's a kitchen mishap went right out the door when he spotted a small gas can sitting in the living room. Now, this drew his attention, so he started paying a lot more attention to see if maybe there were other weird things going on. He noticed the phone lines had been cut, the power was out, and there was this kind of deafening silence. It's the kind of silence where you know you are the only living creature around. So he was like, okay, this is odd. There's something wrong. So he begins to investigate further, does a quick look around at the bottom floor, doesn't see anything else. So then he heads up to the second floor and he approaches the first bedroom. This is a trigger warning. Please skip ahead about 5 seconds. So in this room is where he finds the charred body of what he knew was a teenage girl. This was a crime scene and he knew something awful had happened. So he calls for backup, and while waiting to back up, he tries to investigate further without contaminating the crime scene anymore. Another trigger warning, I would skip ahead 10 to 15 seconds. So this girl, this teenage girl, had been shot in the head, but she also did not have any clothing on, which is usually a major indicator that she had been sexually assaulted. She was not bound, but she was blindfolded, and next to her was a deceased dog. There was no signs of physical trauma to the dog, and later it was determined that the dog had died from smoke inhalation. So the officer moved into the next room, and here he found what appeared to be the burned bodies of 2 adults and another young kid. All of them were hog-tied, had a pillowcase over their heads, and all were shot in the head, execution style, and this was done with a shotgun. So all 4 victims were later identified as Tony, Dodie, Shelby, and Mark Harris, and all of them were burned in some kind of way and shot and killed with a shotgun. So let's
Horrible.
yeah, that's gotta be rough. Shotguns do a lot of damage. So let's take a short break from the horrible events of what happened to this family and shed some light on who they were. So the Harris family consisted of Warren Tony Harris, his wife Dolores Dodie Harris, and their 2 kids, 15-year-old Shelby and 11-year-old Mark Harris. They lived in Ellis Hollow of Dryden, New York. It was a small section of the town where hardly anything happened. It was the type of area where you left your doors unlocked, and that basically the worst thing to happen over the year were car crashes. The Harrises were known to be loved by everyone. They were active in their community, especially so Dodie, who ran a local gift shop from a barn behind the main residence. Tony was the sales director of an electronic equipment distributor. Both kids were in school, and if there was something Dodie could be a part of, she was. They were a vital part of their community, so when the news of the murder came out, the whole town was horrified. Everybody knew everybody, and they knew there was no way it was someone that was a part of the community. Basically means someone from the outside came in and did this. And that's even more terrifying because you know it's a stranger. This leads us back to the investigation. Seeing as this was no simple crime, but a murder, detectives from the local police were called in. They began looking for clues and discovered the family's van was missing from the garage. This van was later found in the parking lot of the local mall, but no one was in or near it. So once the Harris bodies were taken to the coroner's office, it was discovered that the officer had been right about what happened with Shelby. Trigger warning again, please skip ahead 10 seconds. So Shelby was discovered to have been both tortured and sexually assaulted before being shot and killed. Considering the fact that Dodie worked in the shop until kids arrived home from school at 4 p.m. and Tony didn't get home till 5:30 p.m., the cops in the coroner believe that everything occurred between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. The fire appeared to have been set upstairs in order to destroy evidence, but thankfully that fire sizzled out before everything could happen. This also included it sizzled out before it could too badly burn the bodies. They noticed in the area where the murders have happened that it also appeared to be professionally clean. This gave them the suspicion that whoever did this may have been in the janitorial field. So once the house was processed, the detectives began to question the neighbors. During this, they learned that one of them had noticed a black male riding a bicycle up and down the street just before the murders could have potentially happened. Considering that it was dark around 5 p.m., this would have been the time when Dodie and the kids were preparing dinner and waiting for Tony to arrive home from work. Around the house, there were no visible vehicle marks in the snow besides the ones that belonged to the family van. This made it clear that whoever showed up had come to the area without their own vehicle. Now, earlier in the evening, before 5 p.m., another woman noted that she had seen someone matching the male's description, bike and all, riding along the highway towards the Ellis Hollow area. So the news of the murders went live soon after the discovery of their bodies, and they were alerted to the fact that someone had used Harris's credit cards to buy clothes, jewelry, and electronics at the mall where the van had been located. Thankfully, they were able to locate the clerk who had done the transactions, and she was able to provide a composite sketch of the man and woman who used the card. These pictures were...
Man and woman who used the cards?
Yes, it was a man and a woman. More than likely, one of them was doing the shopping, and then they were both together. So, these pictures were distributed to the public, and it did not take long for a very important tip to come rolling in. So the two individuals that had been drawn were identified as 54-year-old Shirley King and her 33-year-old son Michael, who also went as Anthony Turner. The police looked into both Shirley and Michael, and what did they learn? Shirley was employed as a part-time house cleaner / receptionist for a bed and breakfast, and Michael also had experience in cleaning, though a closer look at his records showed that he actually preferred to do robbery instead of holding an actual job. So, one of the Harris's other neighbors made a report that she had seen two people who looked like Shirley and Michael driving away from the residence in the van at about 6:50 in the morning on December 24th. So that was the day that the police showed up with the fire alarm. That quickly became a letdown, though, because that same neighbor recanted her statement. Side note for any law enforcement or just people who are curious, once information is let out, like potential suspects, potential clothing that might have been seen, potential vehicles, be careful about the statements that come out, because some people just want to be involved. Like, I don't know, if maybe they find their life too boring, or maybe they're just really into criminal justice. It could be anything. But they like to be involved, and so they will potentially lie and therefore ruin your investigation. So just if you get anything once information has been put out, just be cautious with what you get. Double check
Like
your
taking
facts.
it with a grain
If
of salt.
anything, look into what they said, and then maybe later that day call them back and see if you get the same exact statement. I'm not saying everybody lies. Err with a side of caution. So, the detectives continued their investigation, collected the evidence they needed, and all of that led up to February 7th, 1990. Police showed up to the apartment of Michael, his girlfriend, and their 2-year-old daughter. They knocked, but they didn't get any answer. They did know he was home, and so they forced their way in. And sitting there, ready to go with a shotgun in his hand, was Michael King. He did not hesitate to fire that shotgun. The police returned fire, and Michael was killed. Now, as far as I know, Michael's girlfriend and his daughter are fine. I looked up a few different reports on this, a few different news articles, and there was nothing I could really find about them. But considering that they didn't put out that they were killed, I'm assuming that they just were not at the house at the time that they arrived. Or maybe they were all the way back in a back bedroom, just kind of hidden.
Hopefully they weren't there, because that'd be traumatizing for the 2-year-old, or, not close enough to witness the situation. You don't want that for a child.
No. So this is already a dark and twisted story, so I'm just going to take it at a lighter note and say the girlfriend and the 2-year-old daughter were just not home when this happened. So the police took possession of that shotgun, and surprise, surprise, the ballistics were a match for the gun that was used to shoot and kill the Harris family. Now, this account of events was questioned. Kind of doesn't surprise me. This was a white police force. Michael and Shirley were black, and obviously, the guy just randomly was sitting there with a shotgun and decided to start shooting. So yes, I do understand why this was questioned. But according to law enforcement, Michael had a bad history with them, and he had once told his friends that he'd wish he'd let the cop shoot him prior and kill him. So they believed that this actually was suicide by cop because he knew he was going to be going to jail again, and that he would rather be dead than be incarcerated. So with Michael, their main suspect now dead, they turned their attention to his mom, Shirley. They did know for a fact that she had forged Doty's name on the receipts of the credit card purchases. And when they questioned her about it, Shirley straight up admitted to her crime. She said she used the cards and even knew where they came from. She knew Michael had brutally murdered the family, but she chose not to say anything. So he's like, here, Mom, I just brutally murdered and did other things to this family. Here's their credit cards. Let's go buy you some new clothes. And she was just like, bet. She was like, Mama.
You never know the situations that people are going through, and some families are much closer than others. It doesn't mean that what she did was right, but I mean, what good mom's gonna out their son? I mean, I would if my kid killed somebody.
I would.
sorry, kid, you're gonna go.
Like,
But
your actions have consequences. Welcome to life.
we've seen it over time and time again. Moms will do anything for their kids.
I mean, I could understand that if all she did was not say anything, but she like happily used these credit cards to go buy things.
True.
But I mean, Sam is right. You know, they could have been in a really tough spot. There's a lot that we don't know, so I'm not going to try to judge that hard. So, the cops did note that she seemed to have a lack of feeling towards the murder. Like, she wasn't really upset that it happened. So, they believed that she was deeper into this than she was admitting. So, with the evidence that they had, they charged Shirley with arson, possession of stolen property, and burglary. They also believe that she was in the house when the son murdered everything. She just wasn't. They just weren't able to fully prove it. So, during the November 1990 trial of Shirley, the gas can that had been found in the living room was entered into evidence. There was also testimony from officers stating they had lifted Shirley's fingerprint from the container. This put Shirley in the house. So, hearing and seeing all the evidence providing to them, Shirley was found guilty by a jury of her peers and was sentenced to 17 to 44 years in jail. I mean, just reading all that, it seems like this is a pretty cut and dry case. But something happened that was wrong on so many levels and really screwed up this case. So 2.5 years after all of this happened, an internal investigation was launched against one of the officers that had testified. During that internal investigation, they learned that the officer had planted Shirley's fingerprint on the container. They admitted that they needed something to really solidify their case against her, and that was what they decided to do. And of course, this screwed up everything. I have no doubt.
You can't falsify
No, you can't.
evidence.
I have no doubt that Shirley was guilty. I mean, she admitted that she knew of everything, and I am 100% confident that she was in that house. The thing is, the way they did it was wrong. They should have just hoped that what they had was enough to convince the jury. That doesn't mean going and
Yes.
planting evidence. Very wrong. Especially
No.
because in cases like this, it really did screw up everything. So Shirley was released.
Yeah. That wasn't
Yeah, no, it
helping.
didn't help because Shirley was released and all of her charges were dismissed and her case was dropped. So in 2007, she then turned around and sued the state of New York for $500 million. She only won $286,312. And this was only the amount because when they were talking to her about everything and even afterwards, they were able to pinpoint that it actually appeared that she had enjoyed what her son did and showed no remorse to the victim. So they were basically like, yeah, you know what? You were convicted over a lie, but we know that you still probably had something to do with it, so you're not getting all your money. And then in 2015, she passed away at 80 years old. So we know that this family suffered tragedy, no doubt about it. And I'm honestly kind of glad that we are not going to know fully what they went through. Like, I don't think I want to know. We know the basics. And I definitely do not want to know what Shelby went through or what her parents had.
No.
Her parents were alive when everything happened to Shelby, literally in the next room, and they had to listen to it.
Thinking about being in that situation and listening to your child go through something like that is heartbreaking. But then also knowing that your son is next to you, going to be shot as well, like that's just a parent nightmare. That's not even, I feel really bad for the whole
Well,
family.
I didn't. When I was researching this case, and I literally just now put two and two together. This is literally your family situation.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
I can't imagine like any of that. Like it really makes me just I'm really trying to hold back tears right now. That's really sad. And then it makes you think like why did they choose that family? Why did they target them? What was their life situation where they thought that this was their best choice that they had to choose to do something?
I almost wonder if he kind of was scoping the area and just so happened that, it was a mom and her kids and no man in the house. And then I'm assuming Tony then showed up and they kind of freaked out and took him out too. Some people are just shitty. Some people are just evil. There's no rhyme or reason why. They are simply just evil, evil, evil individuals.
Yeah.
So,
That's sad.
like I said, what the cop did was wrong. I know he was trying to do it out of a good place, like he really just wanted justice to be found, but obviously he went the wrong way of doing it. He needed to trust his jury, and he needed to trust the fact that what evidence they had was enough. So yeah, so basically, Shirley got away with helping her son kill an entire family. But
Yep.
on a final note, it is sad, but kind of like an aw. So Annie was their family dog. She was the one found next to Shelby in their room. And they noted that since she wasn't physically injured and that she had died from smoke inhalation, that Annie had simply decided to stay next to Shelby. So Shelby had already passed, and instead of, escaping the house and getting away from the flames, or even just going downstairs and staying, away from the smoke and everything, Annie decided to just curl up and stay next to Shelby.
The sweet dog. And then you have to think about the dog having to hear and listen to all that.
But she was like, nope, Shelby's my girl, and
Poor
I'm gonna
Becky.
stay with her. Sad.
That's
But
just
it also
sad.
proves that we don't deserve dogs because they're just so good-hearted.
Yeah.
So needless to say, and I can definitely tell from the look on Sam's face, that this was a rough case. This family was murdered for apparently no apparent reason. Looks like it was just the wrong place, wrong time, or kind of ordeal. And none of their killers faced true justice. Michael was killed before he could face true justice, and obviously Shirley was let go. And with that being said, go hug your dog if you have one. We don't deserve them. Or your any other pets, cats, birds, iguanas,
Kids,
your kids. Yeah,
spouse,
go hug
family.
your kids. Hug them for me too. So that is all we have for you guys. Go hug your dog if you have one, because we do not deserve them. And with that being said, we do have socials up and running. We will provide updates of episode releases and any fun things we come across. We have Facebook and Instagram, and you can listen to these episodes on Spotify and YouTube. Everything will be under deadandwrongpodcast@gmail.com. Please feel free to send in theories, case suggestions, things that you know about or have participated in. And obviously, if you want to send in pictures of your pets, please do, because Sam and I love animals. And obviously, everything that you guys send in, please send with consent.
Yes, consent forms
Yes,
are
and
needed.
please just give us some time. We are still, this is something we are learning at. I'm sure, as you've heard, I've messed up words in my speech plenty of times. We will get better. We will get used to this. It'll kind of just become something that naturally flows for us.
My speech will not get better.
She's
I'm
doing a
horrible
lot
with
better
words.
than I am, but I'm also doing a lot more talking. I will get better at reading, and I won't be randomly drawing so many blanks. So please bear with us. And with that, we will see you next week with episode 3, and cue the ending hook line that has still not been created. We will get there one day.
I think that is the ending.
Just
hook
keep
line.
it like that and cue the ending hook line, guys. That hasn't been created.
That's the ending hook line.
Well, that's all. See you later, guys.
Bye.